Hear me now? Yeah. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Aaron Sheedy. After 20 years of service, Aaron retired from a career in law enforcement. He was in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and the National Police Federation during these years. Aaron is the author of the Redcoat Diaries book series and the director of Underground Aurelia, Coming Out Cops, and the upcoming Scapegoat documentaries. His company, D.F.F. Productions, oversees and creates original entertaining content that bends towards social justice and historical exploration. When asked what he's going to do now that he has left law enforcement, he said, "I'm going to spend my life pointing my camera at great stories," which is what he does when he isn't at nursery school learning to help people in a new way. He is married with 2 children, living in Bowmanville, Ontario, Canada. Please join me in warmly welcoming our very own Aaron Sheedy to the room where we will point his camera at him to share a great story.
Just before I came on, I got a text message from John in Scotland, and he said, "Speak into the microphone." So I will attempt to keep doing that. Good morning, my name is Aaron Sheedy. I use he, him pronouns, and that will become, I'll explain that little tag at the end of my name as we move along here. When I was asked to speak on the Affirming anniversary, I'm like, I think you might have the wrong person, because I'm straight, and I'm white, and I'm a cop, and all these other reasons that people typically are like, maybe we don't need your voice in this space all the time. So, but then when talking with Scott about it back and forth a bit, some things came up that put me a little bit unique. I think unique enough that I can tell you some of my story and some of my family story and some of my story as an artist. And I hope it all comes together and makes sense at the end. The first thing is I learned a term last year called queer spawn, meaning that you're a child of somebody who is queer identifying. So my mother is an out lesbian, lives in Nova Scotia, and interestingly, a trained minister in the United Church of Canada. And so I spent my very young childhood, like 10 years old, running around basements of churches, which is important because it gave me a fascination for looking at things underground, which I'll show you a video about in a minute. But that interest started running around the basement of United Churches. St. Paul's in Aurelia, Ontario is where we got to start, as well as Center for Christian Studies in Toronto. Like these are the places that I was exploring all the time. Because my mom was doing the boring church things, I was doing the kid running around the church basement, probably playing the piano badly while other people are doing it well, all those things. So a little bit more about my career. I was a Mountie. I was with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police as a police officer for 20 years. And then I jumped in, did union work briefly at the end of that. It didn't give me the detachment, working for the union didn't give me the detachment from law enforcement that I wanted. I did 20 years as a cop, and that's probably enough. So then I retired fully, and now I'm actually a nursing student where I'm able to use my desire to help people in a new way, in a very physical healthcare kind of way. So the cop story in me, we started, I guess I got to tell a little bit about the artistic part now. The artist in me has always been a filmmaker and writer. So I've always been writing, and I think I had my first puppet show when I was 7, and even had special effects. Wish I had it on video. But always been looking for ways to present and show people, the crazy ideas I have in my head and the connections that I have in my head. And filmmaking is my passion. If the books open up and I get to be a filmmaker full time and it pays the bills, everything else gets dropped and I do that. But life isn't always one thing. Life is more than one thing, so I keep doing different things. But they merge and they come together. And that's a bit of the story that I'm telling here today. So I mentioned I had a book series called Redcoat Diaries where I worked with police officers, and they told me their interesting, positive stories from policing. So there's two kinds of policing books. There's books that are extremely negative, and they talk about how horrible everybody is to each other, and then there's the ones who don't sell, like mine, where they tell the good stories or the heartfelt stories or the stories where you get really close to the people doing that kind of work and you get to know them a little bit better. So the books are out there. Don't buy them because I have a basement full of them. If you want one, let me know. I'll bring you one. I am proud that they did sell thousands of copies, but it has been like 10 years, so it's not like it's a current thing. So on a lark, a friend and myself started a company called D.F.F Productions. D.F.F stands for Done for Fun. So our rule was like we're going to do something that interests us. We're not chasing profit, which is good because it never came. But we're able to film things that we're interested in. And as we developed and got better at what we did, we reinvested in equipment, we do more things. So I put together a short montage of the different things I've done for video. And maybe now would be a good time to show video one.
Would it have anything to do with the bowling lanes that were down there? Because 2 or 3 of us kids got stopped one day by Skid Watson when we were walking by the YMCA, and he said, "Will you kids be interested in earning a nickel? We need someone to set up pins."
Growing up, being a member of the St. James Congregation and attending Sunday school there, and as well as becoming an acolyte and then a server, one of the neatest things about being at that church, you kind of go down this stairway. You can go one way into this auditorium, but if you keep going into the basement, there are these insane passageways that go all the way around the church. And I'm talking big, heavy wooden doors. And the neatest thing was when, you're helping out and being a part of the church community, you'd have access as a kid. And some of the neatest memories I have is being allowed to go exploring.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, it's me.
What's going on, man?
Where are you?
About half hour out of town.
You gotta come back.
Why? What'd you get?
Bremen and I found something.
Like, you guys were going to, like, that pet store, right?
Yeah, Dave's Pets. We're actually in the basement right now.
Okay, so what'd you find?
Well, it's actually a tunnel.
Like what we found in Geneva or Carousel? Like, just like a access tunnel? No, this is different. It's got like a brick archway, double brick, and I can't tell how far it goes back because there's a big pile of dirt in there, but it's definitely a tunnel. Like, it looks old?
What's that?
It looks old?
It looks really old. Basically, Bremen and I were in the basement here. There's a huge metal door. Tried to open it, it wouldn't open, so we checked out the rest of the basement. I came back, and just before we left, I thought I'll give it one more try, so I yanked on it. The door screeched open, pitch black inside. So Bremen and I used our phone flashlights, and sure enough, there's a double brick it looks old. It looks like a really old tunnel.
It's intriguing because our ancestor used to do is try to hide from drinking publicly and everything else. So, and I think that was one of the ways to get across the road to carry the booze over there. And my understanding from what I'm talking to people before was that when the mayor at the time, they would have parties over at the Opera House. That's true. The tunnels went across from Fred's Meat Market over to the Opera House, and basically what they did was transported alcohol from the liquor store that was there, and there used to be a bowling alley above on the second floor there.
But we'll never know really why. It's always a point of it's a matter of speculation, and this movie, people are going to come away from it and they're going to still be asking questions.
Hello and welcome to the screening of the Coming Out Cops film. My name is Aaron Sheedy and I'm the director of the documentary. I want to take this opportunity to thank the production team, Sandra Sparling, Patty Ritsinas, Jean Turner, Shane Morrison, and Blair Niblett. The film has been a labor of love for all of us, one that saw significant changes from the original version of the film to what we have here. We filmed over 3 years, 2019, 2020, and we shot in 2021. And during that time, the earth shifted on us twice. First was the worldwide pandemic, which canceled our plans to film the end of the movie at Toronto Pride. And the second was the worldwide response after George Floyd was murdered, which changed our audience. And as producers, it changed the way we wanted to present this story of Coming Out Cops. We had to adapt to both these events to find meaningful presentation of the material, which I'm proud to say we achieved. We recorded approximately 1,500 minutes of video and scaled that down to 47-minute final version that you'll see here today. We interviewed upwards of 24 people for the movie, many of whom don't appear on screen in the final cut. However, whether on screen or not, their thoughts and feelings had significant influence in the way that we presented the film and the messages that we shared. We hope the film bridges the gap of understanding between 2S LGBTQ plus police services, and the queer and trans community, as well as Black, Indigenous, and other vulnerable people. If you are in law enforcement and you watch the film, we challenge you to think about the experience of your 2S LGBTQ plus colleagues and how you might change the way you interact with queer, trans, and other marginalized people in your work. If you're not a police officer, we challenge you to understand the experience of 2S LGBTQ plus police officers and imagine how you might contribute to a dialogue with police services in your community. Thank you for watching and enjoy. And that got us to here. So thank you for enduring that. The Ukrainian video that we shot here 2 weeks ago, on the 25th, not even 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, And I was a little bit nervous because Glenn and I did a mic switch at the very end. We put the shotgun mic nice and close so people in the room could hear. So we had more of a wide-angled microphone in the background, but I got to catch everybody singing. So it was great. So the art of video editing is using what you got and doing your best with it, right? So that's how movies come together, because you never know what you end up getting and how you splice it together. Sometimes it's whimsical, sometimes it's too hard to watch. Within Coming Out Cops, we videoed interviews where women have traded their bodies in order to keep the secret that they were queer, so they didn't lose their job with the federal government. And that there's a whole chapter of darkness around the LGBTQ purge within the federal government in Canada. If you're not aware of it, you should probably make yourself, because it's part of our history that we need to know, but is not very often spoken about. So it's out there. I think it's important to remember at this point that I am LGBTQ plus, meaning queer identifying plus adjacent. I want to remind you that I'm not speaking for any community other than myself as a parent and a filmmaker. It's super important that if you're looking for the experience of somebody who's living a life, you need to speak to the people who are experiencing that. And there's people in this community that you can reach out to, I'm sure will talk to you about that. And if you don't know who they are or where to get that, to talk to those people, I can certainly make some introductions. But I just really, it's really weird space for me to be standing here telling you my story as a straight white guy, right? So I just want to be clear about that. As a parent, I consider myself an ally, and an ally is generally defined as somebody who can accept somebody without judgment. But as a parent, I'm fiercely biased. I am aggressively protective of my children, even though I do it with a smile on my face, right? So I am not accepting of many things, mostly because I have teenagers, and you can't be accepting of what teenagers do all the time. You just cannot. They'll burn down your house, okay? So you got to be very careful around that. So I have this very funny balance where I am open and accepting, but at the same time, I want to call things out that I see that are going to be working against the health of my children. And that sometimes lands in contrast with what some people in the larger queer community, which I am not directly a part of, want to articulate. So I find myself in that contrasting position. It's like, yes, I see what you're saying, but I don't think that's good for my children. And as a parent, I am going to advocate for my children, even if they don't want me to. Right? So, and as they get older, they advocate more and more for themselves, and I get to be more of a participant and get to watch more. But being a parent of queer children, as maybe some of you are, or grandparents, maybe some of you are, you're in that weird space. You're in that weird space where you have to protect them, and you have to be open, and it's really sometimes hard to navigate. It really is. So through my movies, this is sort of, I know you folks are fairly educated and you've been open for many years, so you've probably heard all these things before, but through my movies, I learned that I have to educate basically the 4 principles of humanity to people when it comes to who you are as an individual. And this holds true for everybody, not just if you're queer identifying or not. So, there's basically the 4 things as a way of definition. We're talking about sex, the body parts that you were born with. How were you assigned? Nature said you're going to be male or you're going to be female. From there, it goes out to gender. Gender is, I've learned, and I'm able to express, that gender is not a choice, but it's the way I try to explain it is it's your internal calling. And maybe others can explain it better, but everybody has a gender, or they don't, but everybody has that gender conversation inside. And for some of us, it's easier than others, right? But gender, like that is, am I male identifying or female identifying, boy versus girl, or both in the middle, and etc., right? And then extending from that is gender expression, and that's separate, and that gets confusing for people. I could stand here and say, I'm Aaron, I'm born a male, and I identify as a woman, but I present myself as a man. That's super confusing, right? And it's okay, it's confusing. You don't have to understand it. Remember the original quote? You don't have to understand it. You just have to know that person is having that experience, and that is not for you to deny their experience. And finally, sexuality or romance is who you're attracted to. And all these things become decided upon. So it's pretty straightforward, pun intended, for me, where I'm a male, I was born with male parts, I'm a guy, and I express myself as masculine, and I like women. That is how it landed for me. But there's 4 spectrums there. Doesn't necessarily mean that everything lands there all the time. And if you think the world is you're either born male or born female with those parts, you need to look into that. That's not true. That's not true. You've been lied to, right? There's lots of people out there who have hormones of the opposite gender, or there's people who have appendages that they didn't expect, or they have tissues that you wouldn't normally attribute to either male or female or both. So it's those 4 things, it's those 4 things. You have to find where you are in those spectrums and understand that your spectrum is going, if you're going to flip a coin 4 times, it's pretty unlikely we're all going to land exactly the same, right? So even if it was binary, it's not. I have a dad joke, but my kids won't let me read it. I'm going to do it anyway. It's part Star Wars as well. Okay, here's my dad joke. Would a gender-fluid person choose to live on Earth or Tatooine? And Tatooine is a mythical Star Wars planet that has 2 suns. They want to live on Earth because it's non-binary. Some of you got it. My kids swore nobody would. So, as a straight guy coming into all this world with all the letters and everything, it's very, very confusing. Does everybody have a solid, yes, this is what 2S LGBTQ is, and they're 100% solid on the order, and guess what? The orders change, letters get added, they get dropped, they get changed back and forth. Newsflash, nobody's in charge. You pull back the curtain, there's no Wizard of Oz pulling the levers. It's a grassroots, and it comes through popular opinion, basically, as to how all this is going to work. So what can you do? Try to stay up on it. If somebody corrects you, so be it, you've been corrected. Okay. Which leads me to the impetus for my movie that I'm making right now called Scapegoat. And it's really the process of how bad actors, people who intend to do harm, people with ill intent, work against a specific community. Somebody once said to me when they were talking about scapegoats, they said, we take the stress of a community and offload it onto young people and offload it onto a sacrificial symbol and cut it loose or worse. Right? So right from the old Bible stories is all of our community stress is going to be laid onto the goat. And then we're going to kill the goat and we're all going to feel better. Okay? And that process happens all the time in humanity. People, bad actors, will use that stress that we have as a community and may not be necessarily directed towards a specific group, but we're going to put that stress on that, and then we're going to attack it, or a ill-fated hero is going to come forward and push it aside, and we're all going to feel better. Okay? So when we're talking about young trans people, we have some really interesting things that people bring up. And they bring up things that reasonable people may ask. And that's their entryway, right? So they enter with, wouldn't it be child abuse to give gender-changing medications and surgeries to children? Donna's losing her mind over here because she's been telling us for weeks that you cannot get surgery as a child unless it's an emergency, which is true, right? But as a parent who doesn't know very much and you're just learning about this, it's like, no, I don't want that to happen to my kid. And you'd be a reasonable parent not to want that to happen to your child. Right? But they're using your reasonableness against you to victimize you, to come to their side of the fence. The other one is, I don't understand this pronoun and name change stuff, right? The other one is like, yeah, no, because it doesn't make any sense. It's specific to that community. Until you stop for a second and think about it and walk a few feet in their shoes, will you understand that it has a super important part, which I'll explain after our next movie. And doesn't it make sports unfair? Like, okay. And and that's the one I get quite a bit from parents. It's like, well, I don't want my kid to get slaughtered in hockey, or I want them to have the best fair chance in soccer, et cetera, et cetera. So, and they use these inroads in order to create a reasonableness, and then you have to be very careful of what comes next from this group. I guarantee you it's not PFLAG or Friends with Ruby or the 519 who's coming along and saying, let me tell you about trans sports. Let me tell you about pronouns. They try, but nobody listens. But the voices that you're hearing are coming from very loud evangelistical churches. They're coming from governments, et cetera, et cetera. So what I say is they sail their boat in and they get in the harbor with one of these arguments. Right? You allow them into your house. You watch it on the news. You listen to them with one of these arguments about, the gender abuse and et cetera, et cetera. Now, as a reasonable person, what I'm asking you to look into is what else is in the boat. What else are they getting you to buy by agreeing with them on that? You may not even agree, that you have a reservation about something that they bring to you. What else is in the boat? What are they looking for? And often what you find in the boat is, vote for me. I'm going to change laws in order to make you feel better about the scapegoat that we just created together. You get support for far right or far left organizations. We have to do this because we have to protect this group somehow. And the other one's Join My Religion. We were all familiar with that one. And the everlasting Buy My Junk. I have something I want to sell you, and this is a way that I'm going to scare you into buying something, right? Not necessarily associated to young people and trans connections, but that's how home security companies sell you security companies, right? Oh my goodness, everything's so dangerous and bad, and look, all these bad things are happening, and they show a dark figure walking outside the window. You need to buy my security company, so my security system, right? So it gets used over and over and over again. And I guess my point is, they use things that reasonable people would struggle with. Reasonable people would struggle with those things I mentioned. And they use that as a way to motivate you into their purpose. And that's what I wanted to explore with Scapegoat. In part because I have trans-identifying children at home, and I don't like it when they start circling wagons around my kids and start making them the reason why you need to vote some way, right? So I took some of the production people from Coming Out Cops, and we found Brody Tyler Dawson to be our spokesperson, and we started making a movie. So I'm going to roll on number 2 now.
Young people being allowed to participate in these activities is undermining Canadian values? Me undermining Canadian values? Little old me. This is what I'm talking about. As a community, young trans people are often underpaid, homeless, and can't find access to healthcare. They're more likely to be beat up and sexually assaulted, all while we're just trying to carve out a space in life. I mean, we're not exactly taking over the world here. Then, somehow, we're dragged center stage into someone else's drama. If you're going to scapegoat me, I'm going to find out why.
And suddenly, the scapegoats are being blamed for the world's problems. It's timeless, actually, that a fringe group will claim a virtuous position over a perceived, vulnerable, less desirable group and attempt to do battle with that group so they are accepted as a heroic voice in the mainstream. And it works. Over and over again, it works.
part of it is involved in myth destruction. You know, I'm human. I'm interested in Toronto. I'm interested in what goes on in this city. But it's exactly the same stuff as you strike out the words queer, faggot, homosexual, and insert Jew, whatever. You know, it's the same material. You just change the cast of characters.
Like, I mean, seriously. This isn't over.
Personally, the community is important to me from the parent side. I got queer identifying children to trans identifying children, and I don't like what I'm seeing, and that's my motivation to go. D.F.F. Productions is donating all the camera equipment, all the camera time, all the editing time. You know, that would normally rack rate be thousands of dollars. We're donating that just so we can get the movie made. And if the community comes with us to get it made, that donation is going to be so, we're going to be pretty proud to have made that donation. And more importantly, we're going to be proud to have made the film.
Aaron, I'm going to ask you to look into the future for us. So we've got our community around us. We're able to complete the film. What's next?
So completing the film has many phases, right? There's the end of principal shooting where we put the camera away and everything moves to the computer. That's where we actually run into quite a bit of expenses, where to make a movie that somebody's going to want to see at maybe a film festival, foreshadowing, you need to have a professional level of audio engineering. You have to have a professional level of color correction. I do a lot of things, but I don't do those things, right? So often we have to either find somebody, as Patty was explaining earlier, we find somebody who has those skills, who's willing to donate them for us, or we pay for those skills. That's why, you know, when we say the movie becomes most expensive when the camera gets put away, for us anyway, because that motion from a pile of tape, maybe 100 hours of video that's going to be boiled off into a 90-minute film, there's a lot of process with that. Going forward, we don't know, right? And that's like one of the things that are always exciting in D.F.F. Productions is that we don't know where our films will end up. You know, we have been in film festivals, and that's always exciting when your movie's in a film festival. We certainly try like the large local and somewhat local film festivals that this material would run towards. But like you said too, it's also an act of protest, right? Making a movie is an act of protest, especially one like this. We're saying things that people don't want to hear, so would like to play it in places that they don't want us to be. If it's going to be a protest film, it will be a protest film. Or maybe it's both, right? Maybe we'll see Academy Awards, which would be fantastic, but we never work towards awards, we work towards bringing this community together. And D.F.F. Productions, like the reason I keep going at it is, honestly, every production that I do, I get to meet new people and have new friends, right? So the community is incredibly important, and that support from the community to make a movie is incredibly important. Making movies is hard. So that's where we're at with Scapegoat right now. Just ignore, because part of that was meant to go to the PFLAG board and ask for money and things like that. But what my point is that a couple points. One about filmmaking, one about what we're talking about. Filmmaking, you need to enjoy the process, especially when there's not a lot of money involved. So we have a lot of fun making movies, even when it's about a topic like scapegoating or coming out cops. Like, we have a lot of fun, and we have a lot of, I really do like to build community around it. So that's like the number one reward for me as an artist, is that I get to make a movie, and guaranteed at the end of it, like, there's new friends and such all around. But the other point is, I don't know if this movie is going to be a protest movie or not. I don't know if it's going to be played on TV. I don't know if it's going to just live on YouTube. I don't know if, we already get the hate mail and stuff on social media about it, right? Because people are like, oh, you can't believe you support this, and et cetera, which warms my heart because I'm aggravating people, which is what I want to do with my movies as well. Now, me and activism and why I'm motivated to this is this one thing. One and only comes down to this. My whole talk comes down to this. And there's people in the room who may be experiencing this as we speak. A transgender person is 7 to 8 times more likely to complete a suicide than the average person. I have 2 trans kids. Do you think I'm motivated? Do you think I'm smiling? But what will happen when the smile comes off and it's time to go to action? Right? Cameras are powerful things. You can't dodge what happens on the camera. And I can manipulate a camera in a way to tell the story the way I want to, and that's what I'm doing with Scapegoat. And not saying that everybody needs to become activists and needs to make a movie and needs to go wave flags, but you can do your part. You can do your part and be a safe person. We talk about safe spaces all the time. I kind of cringe a little bit when I see a rainbow flag on a Catholic school or a bank. I don't feel very safe when I go into my bank. I feel like I'm getting a little queasy when I go into my bank because I don't feel like they have my interests at heart. So people who are saying, hey, this is a safe space, like we say here in this community, hey, we're a safe space. We have rainbows around, et cetera, et cetera. But are the people safe? The people make it safe, not a space, it's not the place. Your police station isn't a safe space. Your church is not a safe space because it harbors people who will move against my children. That's what those places everywhere, the bowling alley, you name it. I don't care if it's got a flag on top or not. I need to know that the people are safe. And when you talk to my kids, especially when they were younger, I call them rainbow hunters, really. Anywhere they go, they could pick out, there's a rainbow there, there's a rainbow there, there's a symbol there that's supportive. That person's wearing something discreet, like a he, him pronoun button, which means that I don't know what he knows. I don't know if he's a good person, a bad person, et cetera, but I know that they're going to work as part of an ally. They might be a bad person, but they may not have a problem with me being who I am, and that's what my kids say. If I can see that rainbow, I can take a breath that person in that corner is somebody I can be safe with. So, how do you communicate that you're a safe person? Safe organizations, great. And I'm not diminishing the significance of what we have here today with the anniversary, because this church is very clear. We're not a building. We are not a Zoom call. We are a collection of people, right? We're very clear about that. But what can you do as an individual? And I thought about this. It was blank on my sheet, right? When I was writing, it was blank because I really don't know. I know that the symbols are important, and I know that how you talk is important, that you're not using exclusive language, and when somebody presents themselves as, different than your 4 things, that you're able to navigate that okay. I know that's important. Send a warning shot in a positive way. Have a rainbow something somewhere that people can see. I know professors who do it with a book on their desk, on their bookshelves. When students come in, boom, right behind them an eye line is whatever book that would be identify that this is something that I've read and I know and I'm prepared to talk about. So however you do that in your life, for us it's a small flag on our front yard. Isabella's room looks like a unicorn threw up in it, but outside of our house, you don't need to paint your house rainbow. You just need to have something that says, if somebody approaches this house, they're going to run into people that may be supportive. And in support of that, I bring you offerings in the offering plate. So what I have here is, if you want to take one, there's buttons for the pronouns. And there's stickers if you want to put them on your laptops or whatever. There's buttons for your jacket. We can pass those around as we're concluding here. Just one final thought on pronouns. Okay, a couple final thoughts. First one is, if you came up to me and said, "Hey, my name's Aaron, and I called you Steve the entire time intentionally," That'd be really rude, wouldn't it? So somebody comes up and says, I'm Alex, I use she, her pronouns, and you don't respect that, it's just simply rude. Why would you do that? I don't understand. Because you've made a decision about their gender, you made a decision about their 4 things for them, and you're not going to respect it. I don't understand. That being polite is step 1. Even if you don't understand it all. It's like, okay, she, her, I'll do my best, I'll make mistakes, I'll correct myself, and do my best. The other part of that is you get to people saying, it's like, when I write, I don't like using inclusive language because it's awkward and clumpy. I don't want to do she, her, and all this other stuff that I have to do, or possessive singulars, right? So they, them, being identifying one person. Okay, so as a writer, you don't want to write that way. Don't write that way. But as a writer, I can guarantee you, I can write in a way that doesn't offend people and still get my message across. And if you can't not offend people when you're writing because you don't have the skills to navigate they, them, time to go back to the class. It's time to get better at reading writer. Okay? So there's one last movie, but it's actually available on YouTube. All this stuff is available on YouTube on my D.F.F channel. If you want to Google D.F.F Productions, you can see it all. I'm right on noon, and I know I'm standing between you and food, so I know I have a very short amount of time before the crowd attacks. So thank you very much.
I'd like to finish off with a personal message. I am transgender, and I am human. I feel, I bleed, and I speak. And to take a breath as who you are, with lungs that fill to the top with purity, is the only breath that you would need to take to believe that you can walk amongst the stars. Trans people are not going anywhere. We are here, we are there, and we are everywhere.
Everything you said is so important. Pass, take, wear, share. Thank you, Aaron, for who you are. Where do we find you? So glad you're part of this family, and the way we communicate is so extremely important. 2 quick things. When Brothers Speak is this Saturday night. Dwayne Morgan is doing, I think next year is his 25th anniversary doing this. There are still tickets available. And just a little regret, we were going to have a quartet with Diane, our bookkeeper here. One of the members of the quartet was ill, so we couldn't have them to celebrate Affirming Sunday with us this week, but we're getting them back for sure. And you again, I'm sure, Aaron. Thank you for caring about people in the widest possible stretch we can do, and to stand there with courage. So happy Affirming Anniversary Sunday to each one of us, and to those of you that are far away. It's a good thing to do. Affirming our values makes a very good day on this planet. Donna?
Thanks, God. Please stand and join me for our final chorus. Hopefully we have the words right.